Republicans are now desperately rethinking if and how they should be talking about abortion during their campaigns because of the disastrous flop of the 2022 midterms. Remember that in 2022, historically speaking, Republicans should have done unbelievably well. They should have probably taken control of the Senate, which they did not. They actually lost ground in the Senate, going from 50 to 49 seats. They should have taken control of the House with a much greater margin, but they did not. And now Republicans are in the situation of having to rethink their strategy. There's an interesting Hill article by Julia Manchester, which says Republicans are recalibrating their messaging on abortion after Democrats successfully used the issue to galvanize their base and win over swing voters in 2022. While the GOP largely focused on the three-pronged message of combating rising inflation, crime, and the flow of migrants over the border, exit polls showed abortion was a top priority for voters at the ballot box. Republican Committee Chair Ronna McDaniel said, quote, "It was probably a bigger factor than a lot of people thought. We've got to get conversant on that. We can't just do an ostrich method and pretend that it doesn't exist when Democrats are spending $30 million on that message." According to exit polling, 27% of voters said abortion was the most important issue, coming in only behind inflation at 31%. So there's a few things to understand here. In general, abortion is a deeply polarizing issue. And so there's always a risk when you campaign on either side of a really polarizing issue that you're going to alienate a large swath of the electorate. That's just a general thing with polarizing issues. The issue in particular with abortion for Republicans is that not only is it polarizing, but the country continues to be more and more and more in favor of abortion being legal in most cases. And in fact, we've seen a steady increase in the Roe v. Wade era, which ended a few months ago, in Americans, generally speaking, saying, yeah, in most cases, this should be legal. And so when you take that away, as the Supreme Court did as a right, and then Republicans campaign on how great that is, it's not necessarily going to be useful to you. Secondly, abortion is a distraction in a sense to more pressing issues that Americans feel that they are facing, in the sense that Republicans could be focusing on the economy, healthcare, education, and foreign policy without the drag of their position on abortion being there. And what I mean by that is the following. Republicans tried to make their campaigns to a degree about inflation and the border and Biden's bad and whatever. And we can adjudicate whether that's a good or bad idea on its own. But they were dragged down by the knowledge and the timing of the Roe v. Wade reversal by the Supreme Court, and so many Republicans saying that that was a really great thing. And so that was also a problem for Republicans. And the maybe last part of this is, of course, I'm pro-choice. You all know that. But the American people are mostly pro-choice. And so the Republican position on abortion, with some Republicans saying there should be some exceptions, but putting that aside, it's a flawed and misguided ideology. And as I mentioned before, the position of Republicans is based on the assumption that abortion is morally wrong, it should be banned, it should be illegal, maybe it's murder, in many cases, regardless of the situation or the circumstances. It ignores the reality that most Americans don't see it that way. And of course, it ignores the reality that sometimes abortion is necessary. It's an important option for women to have, and it should not be something in which the government is involved. So on so many levels, this is a misguided strategy. So what's going to happen next? We saw it backfire at the ballot box, in part. There's lots of things that we can blame for what happened in November, but to a degree, the position on abortion of the Republican Party was a factor. So do they stop talking about abortion? That's a problem, because Republicans still raise a disproportionate amount of money from religious voters by saying we are against abortion. What do? If they don't talk about it, there's a risk. Talking about it the way they have talked about it is also a risk. So in total, the Republican Party's position on abortion is flawed medically, it's flawed morally and ethically, but it's also flawed strategically. If they want to win elections and be successful, they're going to need to do a rethink. I don't know what that rethink should be. I don't care. I don't want them to win. So it's not for me to start giving them advice, but we'll have to track and see whether in some of the 2023 elections, abortion takes on a sort of different tone from the Republican Party, and certainly going into 2024. Let me know if you do have thoughts. How should the Republican Party straddle being against abortion, but the reality that increasingly the country is in favor of it?